Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tricycle's Buddhism and Ecology Summit, Living the Dharma in a Time of Crisis. I'm Sam with Tricycle, and I'm so pleased to be with you today for this talk, The Dharma and Destiny of a Planet People with Joanna Macy. Today's event is part of a week-long series hosted in honor of Earth Day 2022. We're pleased to be offering this virtual summit free of charge. If you'd like to support Tricycle with a donation, please use the donate links in the chat box. If you'd like to rewatch any of the events from the series, the replays will be made available after the week's events have concluded. Also, we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end of this session, so feel free to leave your questions in the Q&A tab, and we'll get to as many as we can. Now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Joanna Macy. Joanna Macy is a teacher, author, and scholar of Buddhism, systems thinking, and deep ecology. As the root teacher of the work that reconnects, Macy has created a groundbreaking framework for personal and social change that brings a new way of seeing the world as our larger body. Her many books include World is Lover, World is Self, Widening Circles, Active Hope, and Coming Back to Life. Thanks so much for being here with us, Joanna.
I am thrilled. Thank you for collecting these people. Thank you for your fantastic publication. And thank you, everyone whom I can't see, for joining this conversation. It'll become a conversation in a bit. I'm thinking of not letting myself, don't let me keep on talking, because I want to have 15 or 20 minutes of discussion, your comments, and so forth. So here we are at this moment on planet Earth, in planet Earth, for the atmosphere we're breathing is her body as well. And here we are with our life-loving hearts and minds at a moment when it's hard to imagine a time without more dangers threatening the biosphere and each one of us, in addition to build up to a climate catastrophe, loss of biodiversity, disappearance of species after species. There is a war going on. We're cranking out, my country is cranking out weapons that we've been furnishing to the world at a heartbreaking rate, and they're being used, and we're getting rich. So it's enough to, well, I say it again, break the heart. But praise be, we have the Buddha Dharma, and it has been a source of great inspiration and gratitude for me. And so I'm going to draw on it, as well as some ornery, spunky parts of my personality. And I called them, so what do I mean by planet people, and why did it come to me? It came at the end of in the last election, which was continued to be questioned by 40% of the United States. And I saw us so fractured, so polarized, that I thought, how can we ever proceed, join hands to do the business that we need to do for caring for our world, for the future, for those who are coming after us. And so I thought, but do we need to agree on everything else if to be a planet person? What if we had an identity we could share, an identity of, even if we don't like every belief and attitude and activity of the others, we can have one thing that we open our will and our caring to, which is our planet and the survival of life on our planet. And so I've been featuring how, because we need each other desperately. We're not going to make it without each other. Can we at least agree that we're planet people? And let our differences continue, and except for one thing, we will not let the flame of life go out on this planet. So that's where the phrase comes from. And then I want to share with you just a few stories that about my belief in how we can have been a source of and illustrate a sense of solidarity and intra-connection, not only interbeing, but like my friend Dan Siegel, the neuroscientist, in his new book, Intra-Connection, is saying that we are in our personalities and in our bodies intra-connected from our deepest layers. So I want to say that very early on in my exposure to the Dharma, which was in the 1960s, about when I was in my early 30s, early to mid 30s, and I was in India, and I found myself working with Tibetan refugees they began pouring out in 1959, 58, from when the occupation of China was by China in Tibet was threatening to erase the Dharma there, and also much life, and also the fruit-bearing land. And there was a massive exodus. And I was there in connection with the American Peace Corps. Actually, I had my children with me, so I couldn't be a volunteer, but we were there because my husband was helping to run the Peace Corps program there. And I found myself up near the border of Nepal, where there was this great exodus from Tibet. They'd made it so far, sometimes sick. There were many monks and lamas, along with a vast number of lay people, but they were carrying out, they brought their Dharma with them. They brought the living life of their devotion to their Vajrayana Buddhism, and carrying many sacred things with them physically and mentally in their heart mind. And that had an enormous effect on me. And when we got the word that we were going to be, my family and I, reassigned to another Peace Corps program, this time in North Africa, I saw that, oh my goodness, I've been falling in love with the Dharma, but I don't really know it. I don't know. I want to know how to meditate. I want to know how to nourish what I've been just sensing and understand. So, because I hadn't wanted to be a burden to these refugees that were so inspiring me, but were also very sick, often with these sicknesses of the India that they had no immunity to. And so I want to tell you now, and I'm going to tell it in some detail, what happened to me when I took a train to go from Delhi, where I was living, New Delhi, up to the railhead. It was a 10-hour travel, and where I could head up into Kangra Valley to my teacher, to someone who had agreed to teach me. Wonderful, wonderful, a woman, nun. So I'm going to, some of this, little bit of it will be, I'll have to read, but where I discovered something about my true nature. And when I got to the train station in Old Delhi to get on the train, 10 o'clock train to Pathankot, the platform seemed to have about half the population of India squeezed on it, clustered around the doors. And when the doors opened, were jammed. I was alone. I had arranged for the care for my children. We had household was well staffed for that, and I had my water jug and my sleeping bag, my bedroll, and a backpack, and there I was. But I didn't want to be there. I was horrified. How am I going to get on? I was being choked as the crowd surged toward the what's it called? For a gate. No, it's not the gate. But for the door of the wagon, the coach. It was a third-class coach that I regretted instantly I hadn't gone at least second class, and pushed in to a point where I felt my arm was coming off and caught in between some porters that were helping me. And then at a certain point, I felt crushed to such a point that I was surprised to hear someone screaming and to find that it was myself. And when we squeezed me onto this coach, which had wooden slabs or berths, three tiers, and a porter seemed to toss me up onto the topmost, and all the people, this noisy crowding in on every, and I sat there to try to disappear from the world, to cut it totally away. I perched up there, determined to find a way to separate myself as fully as I could. I had a book with me. It was the only book I could find. See, this was the 1960s, so there wasn't a Buddhist book anywhere within reach that I could find, except there was a book I found by Houston Smith called The Religions of Man. Yes. But he changed that later. And I turned it to learn what I could about the teachings of the Dharma. And I was reading where he was talking about the second noble truth. And I'd like to just, where's my glasses? Oh, here. So with this noisy, smelly coach, and people bringing on their food as well as their crying babies, and camping themselves in every corner of if they didn't have a berth, then they use any other piece of space, including the toilet, jammed in there as well. And this is what I was reading. So to try to concentrate on something else and not be there. Tanha, craving, is a specific form of desire, the desire to pull apart from the rest of life and seek fulfillment through those bottled up segments of being we call ourselves. I was reading this and it continued. It is the will to private fulfillment, the ego oozing like a secret sore. Every few lines to let the words sink in, I would let my eyes wander around the coach just to stay alert as I could. And then I looked down again. The words continued. We strap our faith in love and destiny to the puny burrows of our separate selves, which are certain to stumble and give out. Prizing our egos, coddling them, we lock ourselves inside. My breathing seemed to deepen, each breath filling more of my body, as if to ground and steady me for a physical challenge. And what happened was that my body and the sensations of it, steadied by my breathing, seemed to grow and expand. And soon not just what felt like my body, but my own self expanded till it included the whole coach. Every squirming, coughing bundle of rags, every chatting family, every crying baby was not only around me, but inside me. I was no longer enclosed inside my body, but I wasn't outside it either. Everything there was as intimately my body as I. I had turned inside out like a kernel of popcorn, where all that had been the inside was on the outside and what was outside was on the inside. And as I took in, even began to help to steady my breath in breathing, steady myself, I felt that I was no longer recognizable as what I'd been, but what I had tried to hold myself back from was now as intimately myself as ever I had been. And the words that came to me as I began soon to welcome and taste this expanded freedom was, oh, now we can be released into action. That lasted the whole evening. I lay on the bed, on the, what hard to call it a bed, the shelf of that third tier up, as the train swayed and rumbled on its way through the night across Punjab and brought me in the morning to daylight and to the Kangra Valley in the foothills of the Himalayas. It still lasted a little bit as I got out and got on the bus. I couldn't separate myself from the world, and all the other people from the mountains are heading back up there, moving on to the bus to go up to where I was meeting my teacher, up in the hill. And I looked at them with curious eyes, as if we knew a great secret that we couldn't speak, of our belonging, not only to this world, but to each other, a vast commonality in which we were held and were safe and were fed in some way with an exquisite, vast belonging. So soon I came back to recognizing myself as a separate person, but the experience was carried into the teachings I was receiving there for the week in a little room in a Tibetan nunnery they'd found for me. And my teacher put me to work on vipassana, mindfulness, first of the breathing and then mindfulness of every thought, rare attention. And when I remember when I was put in my room and my teacher came in after, said, "I'll check on you," and came in every other day, not every day, but and I said, "Oh, I'm so exhausted. I'm so lazy. I can't keep my mind focused on my mind keeps slipping away. I'm so not disciplined enough." And she just stopped me. Don't use I that way. To even use that and just refer to yourself with a single pronoun like that anchors that use of I, anchors you in your separateness. Say instead, feelings of frustration are arising. Confusion is happening. And that keeps this sense of freedom from being anchored in your own separate, isolated self. It closes the door on yourself. So this was something that never left me. And that when I went home back to the States, I encountered and was distracted not distracted, but I was feeling a kind of ache. And as I have for how are we doing on time? Okay. I felt it like a wound. The hyper-individualism that had embraced the West and all those who wanted to, pretty soon worldwide, people wanting to be like the West and wanting to join the galloping Western successful, so to speak, economy and way of life. And open to, I began to be more and more grieved and troubled by what I could feel in myself and others for 5 centuries of hyper-individualism in the West that had gripped us. Sharpened by the ways of capitalism, seeing people as to be made money out of, that's the competitive strive. And I think the essential competitive nature of the operations of capitalism and how it has separated people and the cruelty of it. I felt acutely the cruelty of competition and looking at people to be made money from. That just, I could almost smell it, It felt so cool, like, there's that medieval torture they called the Iron Maiden, where it's made of metal and you're put in it and it squeezes you, and that crunching of the self made small, painful. It felt as if we in the lands benighted by this competitive economic structures and how it seeped into everything that we do, even into schooling and education, and that it felt like an Iron Maiden, as if inside us there was this tightening, squeezing that made us feel separate daunted, suspicious of others, trying to either avoid them or be like them, but not one with them, which was so. The Buddha Dharma, as I was beginning to identify myself more and more, and I had taken the refuge with His Holiness Karmapa into the Kagyu lineage, going so far back in time, so rich with its use of those. That's for the Tibetans that I had worked with back in the Peace Corps were of this lineage, and we stayed in touch, and they nurtured me from afar, and we even visited. I'd go back, or they'd come even sometimes to the States, the Rinpoches. Yeah, and that this, so as things, one of the things that struck me was that as we prepared to make war again in this country, and that is with, I hadn't been with President Reagan, and in the 1980s, and initiating nuclear arms race with the evil empire, and working to crank out more weapons and actually place them and ground them in Western Europe. And with that grew up a huge, both a peace movement in the 80s, and also a lot of stress and fear. And I noticed how people were in this small self that we are in the capitalist society that we were fattening off work for the weapons making. There was a deep ache inside people, a combination of fear and grief. But the little self that most people identified with didn't allow for that. And it was very easy to feel that you're not supposed to feel that. A successful American is optimistic and shows his or her competence with big smiles and claps on the back, and everything's going to be okay. But as this fear grew, what are we doing? What is in store for us? What the grief that came, and I tie it quite to the nuclear phenomenon and the vicious readiness that it bred in us, that we can always turn. We can always, when it gets bad, we've got the nuclear weapons that we'll use, and we got to have more than those in Russia and the Soviet Union. And a deep fear and enmity grew up between us and the Russians and the rest of the Soviet Union as well. And we didn't have words. This small self, the small lonely self, it was easy to think that there was something wrong with you, and you better shut up, so otherwise people would think something was wrong with you. And so that there was, and so I felt still there. You see, that third-class coach on the Pathankote train was still inside me in some way. There was something that still continued in me. And I thought, of course you're in grief. Of course we don't want to go to war. Of course, but there was no way to, people were quiet and stifling it, and they were making it something to be afraid of. I don't want people to think I'm not patriotic. I don't have even words for this. And so we began to, as a culture, pathologize our pain for the world. This deeply caught my attention, as well as my heart, mind, and my use of systems thinking, that because I'd gone back to school, I hadn't told you that, but that train to Batanco took me in a way back to when I was back in the U.S. to back to the university life, to a doctorate in Buddhist study combined with systems thinking, influenced by nudging from His Holiness Karmapa. And so I began to use what I knew of the Dharma and of systems thinking to see how can I help people feel bigger and to not be afraid of their pain for the world and welcome it, to see what it told them about themselves, that it told them how vast their heart-mind was, that they could see it and welcome that this is compassion. And so that grew the work that became at first despair work, despair and empowerment, and then it morphed into just the same, to the work that reconnects, and deep ecology work was another name, just to help people see that their anguish for the world was not unpatriotic or sick or crazy or dooming them to silence and loneliness, but was something beautiful. And that this was their spirit could be as big, their heart could feel as big as the planet. Then it was the evidence of the caring and evidence of compassion. I visited back in the village where they had built these Tibetan Rinpoches and Tulkus, and they're one of lay people that had come out from eastern Tibet, from Kham. And once when I was back, it was 1980, on New Year's Day, I was visiting with my best friend there, Dugu Chögyal Rinpoche, and he had, for some reason, he said, I want you to hear this. And he told me a prophecy. He said it comes from the Kalachakra Tantra. This was a tremendous gift. I think some of you have heard it from my lips. And I'd like to share it now for what it says. This prophecy says that the time will come when, do you know how old I am? I'm 93 about in another 2 weeks. So what happens for me is I forget words I used to know. So I find I'm glad I wrote a bunch of books. I find them so refreshing, and it's like the cane I've come to use so I don't fall down and having these. So you will find that too. If you're lucky enough to live to be this old, it's wonderful. I'm so grateful. But he told me this, just looking at time. There comes a time when all life on earth is in danger. This was written down 12 centuries ago. Okay. The time will come when all life on earth is in danger. Because what has come to power are barbarian forces that have built weapons that can destroy the earth and technologies that can poison all life. And in this time arises also, just in the nick of time it seems, those who are called in this the Shambala warriors. Now you can't tell a Shambala warrior by looking at her or him, because there's no insignia, they have no uniform. Actually, they have to walk around the whole terrain. They have no separate turf. They're the places where they move, and the forces that are in power they cannot escape that. They must work from inside to transform it. They can't go make a country of their own. Just like us in this situation we're in. Our country is in our hearts and how they unite with the others and you. And we can detect each other by our love for life and our courage. I'm slipping into the first person plural, but this is a prophecy that invites you to identify yourself. It's very important, because when you identify with your mission and yourself, you find great courage comes, and solidarity too. Courage and solidarity. Can't beat it. And that brings comfort as well when you're feeling overwhelmed. And so the Shambhala warriors, when they see the weapons and the power that is brought by the barbarians, that's exerting their rule and their poisoning, toxic effect on all life, they say that these are manomaya. We can fight them. Manomaya means made by the human mind. And that you don't need to be afraid of that. People can be liberated from the delusions. They're based in delusory vision and seeing. And so they move with the Shambhala prophecy says that these warriors, Shambhala warriors, have two weapons. They use the term weapons that Dugu Chögyal Rinpoche, as he told me. And these weapons or resources are insight into our nature. If we are one with each other, we are deeply, deeply connected with all life, and with compassion. That's the other weapon or tool that we have. And that's all the Shambhala warriors have. But they're confident that it'll be enough as they go into actually realizing that they have to move into the corridors of power of the barbarians to dismantle the weapons and all that supports them. So this has been, some of you may recognize that, and we that are finding now in part of my teaching, and as we work together, is that as we use these tools and each other and the resources of the Dharma, or it's there. The resources are in other faith traditions as well. Not quite as clear to some as what we think in the Buddha Dharma, but it's absolutely there. Our brothers and sisters of all faith traditions, we work with them. And we work with them because the path we're on, with all the destruction that is coming down around our climate and around the toxicity and around the loss of species, the mass extinctions and everything. All of that is what we can transform in our face together. And in that, going in the very midst of it, as we do this, we are finding a way through. That preposition is very powerful in our way we see things, because we can let our love for humanity, our love for our living planet, our compassion for us, or the Dharma itself, work through us. We can let that which we love and prize, that we can be and allow it to work through us like grace. And that's the great turning to a, which is promising to us. So I think that I want to leave time for people who are like me, facing this time. Those of you here, ask if there are things you'd like to add about what you're facing or where you're finding strength. I'd love that. Also questions of me. So Sam, can we open
Yes.
it up?
Thank you so much, Joanna. We have a lot of love and gratitude coming in through the chat, and also some questions, many of which are about hope and hopelessness. One from Fred Small is, I know you practice active hope, as do I, but what are the feelings you're actually and honestly feeling these days?
Well, one is a lot of gratitude, because I feel it absolutely amazing. If I had ever known that this terrible situation for our planet, the threats to life on Earth, was going to come, and our people, each other, that we'd be faced by this, I would want so much to be there. I wouldn't want to miss it. So that's I know you weren't probably expecting to hear that, but that's my main feeling. Even it doesn't mean I think I have an answer. I think that it's very important to feel baffled and overwhelmed. But this is my world. I love it deeply. It's a living planet. It's got incredible history. And I wouldn't ever want to miss this what we're facing now. And I think part of that is just that all I've learned about evolution and systems thinking too is that this will be trigger for us or encourage from us. We're in becoming what we will become as we, and particularly with the help of the Dharma, but all faith traditions too, that keep us faithful to life. It's just that, the Anatman teaching as no separate permanent self has been central for me. I think because of that, just because of what it produced for me in a lasting way on that third-class train coach. I wouldn't want to miss this, and I think that as we come to the limits of what our training and our self-definitions have enclosed us and block us, that we're going to find that we're growing new capacities, that we are, that I feel from my own experience that a more intense love for life and readiness to risk everything for the sake of life will be born through us, and powers of valor and self-discipline and passionate attention to life itself is going to be born in us in new ways. So don't isolate yourself, and don't get bothered thinking of course it looks bleak. It always looks bleak before you have to grow something, a new capacity. That's pushing us. This is a birthing time as well as a dying time. And the forces and capacities being ready to birth inside each one of us if we keep our spunk and courage.
Thank you. There are also questions about solutions to the crisis, and there's a special focus on the role of technology. Richard Charter asks, would you please speak to the question of whether you believe that further advances in a more benign technology might be able to at least help solve the host of problems now known as the climate crisis, instead of course caused by our misuse of the technology we've developed so far?
Well, we've been given these tools, of course we'll use them. And and some of the new technical advances in, on one hand, looking at our human ingenuity in moving from killing the topsoil by having new crops and plowing and weakening the soil, shifting to perennial agriculture, even having, like at the Land Institute, grain growing from the prairie, so that there's ingenuity. And the Paul Hawkins' new book of regeneration, one capacity after the other that is honoring, as I understand it, the ways of growing water, growing grain, saving the topsoil, all those regenerative activities, and protecting our food supply, et cetera, are extremely useful, but it's not enough. It's not enough, because we're going to need to have a new relationship to Earth, our living Earth, and to each other, and to ourselves. It's like this, if we let ourselves see it this way, that this very ordeal, the very danger itself, can be like a birth canal. If we keep our insight and compassion still at hand, morphing us into ever more mutually supportive and mutually inspiring and mutually caring as a planet people, that then there's a lot. It's a great invitation, isn't it? We've had enough. It's probably going to take this kind of suffering to free us from capitalism. It's turned us so deeply into ways of gaining for ourselves and disregarding the natural world. It's probably going to take this kind of anguish and this kind of danger to let us give birth, to keep on giving birth to a new humanity and new solidarity with all life. That's my hope. And what I like about Active Hope, and I'm glad you mentioned the new book, it's out in mid-June. And this second edition, it brings us, I'm in love with it. It's called Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In with Unexpected Resilience and Creative Power.
Great, thank you. We've had a few questions about what it means spiritually to be alive during this time. One participant asks, most of these talks speak to the crisis, end with hope and optimism for the future. My question is, how do we prepare spiritually and as communities for the worst of mass extinction?
Oh, that's a great, thank you. Thank you. Because I think it's absolutely essential to keep that in mind. Otherwise, if you're really honest, you've got to face the fact that we can't change enough, we can't reverse this. And so I myself am not sure we can make it. I'm so glad to be here, but it's not because we're going to measure up. Look at what's happening now. With all that's happening, we're throwing weapons all over the world. We as a culture, as a country, and these wars, we're not reliable. When we get scared, we panic so easily. So we can, as we come apart, we're turning on each other. And that may be just that we just don't have it yet. That Earth hasn't been able, and I feel very apologetic to Earth. I want to console her that she's ended up and we created this mess, and that we haven't been able to, with all our moral teachings, with all our wisdom traditions, with all the beautiful wisdom of our indigenous people, we've blown it. I think you have to be ready for that. Otherwise, so that you know what's really at stake. I've taken fallen into or taken an inspirational tone because I think we need that too. We got to remember that hope is what you want to happen, not what you see is likely to happen. And that has come from, the word hope doesn't exist in the Buddhist scriptures. But what exists is that what you choose is what comes to be. What you choose, not what you think is going to happen, but deep intention, resolve, what you're ready to desire and act with virya and earnestness for it. Not what you think is going to likely. You don't need to hold your finger in the wind and see which way the wind's blowing. Don't look that way. Look at what you want for a living planet. Give yourself to that. And be so grateful that you have a chance to do that. Just carrying water.
Thank you so much. I want to get to as many questions as we can, so I think we have for one last one. This one from Alessandra Baltodano. I know that your love of poetry has also been an important part of your work. Could you speak about the role of poetic thinking or poetic sensibility in the context of this crisis?
Oh, I'm so grateful you asked that. Oh, and it's not just, we need all our humanity, all our nervous system, all our heart. And I have been infinitely blessed by with my co-translator, Anita Barrows, we've done 4 volumes of poetry of Rainer Maria Rilke, who had an uncanny insight into what his century, he was here at the first parts of the 20th century, and even our century would bring. It was just, can I just say some lines of Rilke to close?
Please.
This is the last sonnet from the, or sonnets to Orpheus. And it's carried Anita and me, and so anyway, it's for us now, we can think. Quiet friend who has come so far, because we have, we've come from billions of years of hanging around in various forms here. Quiet friend who has come so far. Feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Let this darkness be a bell tower, and you the bell. And as you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. So move back and forth into the changes. What's it like, such bitterness? If the drink is bitter, turn yourself to wine. In this uncontainable night, be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses. The meaning discovered there. And if the earth has ceased to hear you, and if the world has ceased to hear you, say to the silent earth, I flow. To the rushing water speak, I am. So never let yourself lose the true, that you are part of this exquisite planet. You come from that. You come from the dance of the circumstances and molecules and a great, beautiful story of this planet. That's great. It just is so, maybe we have to die with her to life.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And thank you all for participating in this conversation. Again, if you'd like to support this offering, the donation link is in the chat, and we hope to see you at the rest of the week's events. Tomorrow's event, co-presented with the Garrison Institute, is Meaningful Action to Achieve Planetary Health with Paul Hawken, Tara Brock, Conda Mason, and Jonathan Rose. To check out the lineup of the upcoming events, please refer to the Summit event page, which is also in the chat box. Thank you so much for joining us.